Yeah, it was really a focus for me to really build my business in a way that felt good. And in doing so, I actually gave myself incredible tools to, well, I guess I really believe they led to my ecstatic birth.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Motherhood Made Magic podcast. Today I'm speaking with Regan Figg. So Regan is pleasurepreneur and feminine embodiment coach. She helps women to deepen their connection with their bodies, know, live and succeed from their feminine essence and lead with pleasure in business, in motherhood and in relationship. Through the pathway and practices of sensuality, Tao tantric arts, neurolinguistic programming, embodiment and yogic practices, Regan mentors women through her uniquely curated online programs, workshops, and private one-on-one mentoring. Regan is here to be her embodied, liberated, sovereign goddess self and inspire others to be the same. Welcome, Regan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on here. I am deeply honored. Thank you.
It is a pleasure to have you here, and pleasure is really your jam, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
What would you like to know?
Well, you mentioned 3 things in your wonderful little biography there. So business, relationship, and motherhood. And I know that you've recently written a bit of a series about pleasure in birth as well, which is a bit interesting. So where would you like to start?
Okay. Let me tell you all of the things. Right. So, well, I guess probably let's start with how I really kind of got into this work. I mean, I had always been someone who was really connected to my body, connected to what feels good, connected to pleasure from a really young age. It was kind of a running joke in my family. Like, my kind of mantra was like, if it feels good, do it. So yeah, I had kind of spent my early years, and I see a lot of this like with children as well, where they're totally drawn by, they're led by, I should say, and drawn to the things that feel good for them. And so that was exactly the case for me. And then I feel like probably as I got older and, stepped into womanhood and then, went through that enormous, beautiful chaos of the transition through to motherhood, I had discovered that I'd kind of lost my way in terms of connection with my body, connection with pleasure. And that's not to say I didn't have a connection with my body, I didn't have a connection to pleasure, but it wasn't something that was of focus. So really for me, before I became a mum, I'd been practicing yoga and meditation and was also a yoga teacher for about a decade. So I did have a great level of body awareness. But after my first was born, I had a son. He was my first. And about 4 months into motherhood, surprisingly for me, I ended up with postnatal depression and anxiety and insomnia. The wheels just totally fell off. And so for me, it was really about learning to find a way back to myself, find my way home to myself. And that meant redefining what felt good for me, and I guess redefining and exploring and learning about and discovering ways that helped me to fill my cup and feel good and be okay. So, yeah, I guess the real catalyst for my exploration, my discoveries of, and then my focus on pleasure was really from motherhood. So it's interesting, the title of your podcast is so relevant here, because I really do feel like motherhood made my life so much more magical. It was like I don't know, what would you call it? Maybe like an ego death or something. But it was definitely a big transition to help me evolve at hyperspeed, that's for sure.
Yeah, it brings everything up for you to deal with at once, really, doesn't it? Like, it's we'll just deal with this one little bit first and then we'll introduce the next bit for you. It's like, bam, here is everything.
Yes.
Now let's see what we can do here. And I love that you have taken an approach of just going like, not how can we fix this, but how can I make myself feel good, because that is what will fix what is going on.
Yeah, that was a huge lesson for me. And as I said, why it was a surprise for me that I ended up with such poor mental health was because I had always been super positive. I'm like, it's kind of a joke, you know, I'm the eternal optimist. I've always had such energy, like, you know, a decade of yoga and meditation. Like, I didn't think there would be any issues there. And for me, a lot of that suffering actually came from the things the meaning I was placing on my mental health struggles, you know, the not just having a hard time on its own, but also then, you know, suffering twice by telling myself how crap of a mum I was because I clearly wasn't coping and all of those kind of stories. So yeah, so since my first son, and then I had another baby boy, and then just recently a baby girl, it has been really helpful for me to let go of that second layer of struggle in just not judging it and just, yeah, not trying to fix it, but working out how I can be with it and how we can make it feel good. And so, yeah, it really has evolved into my business, into relationship, and also my motherhood journey. Yeah, so I guess I really focused on, with my third pregnancy, I didn't do any of the kind of traditional birthing prep that I had previously done. With my first two children, I didn't dive into any of the hypnobirthing tracks. I didn't read any more books. I'd had two pretty good experiences the first two times. But yeah, I didn't feel drawn to any of that kind of birth prep stuff. For me, I was really focused on building my business. And I decided, you know, I had two kids that were like 2 years apart. I knew the struggles I'd been through the first time round, with all the things I'd been able to put in place, and, you know, all the ways I knew how to fill my cup, I was able to avoid any kind of mental health struggles the second time round. So that was great. And then again, another 2 years later, I've had my third babe. But throughout that pregnancy, it was really about focusing on building my business. And so I decided, like, I'm number one. I need to be okay. I need to be lit up. You know, it's not just about being okay for me. Like, I want to ensure that, I mean, not all the time, but that's a focus of mine. So I have that lens on that. For me, it's about feeling lit up and feeling good and not just getting by. So when it came to building my business, I was like, I have no desire to do it in a way that I don't want to do it. I have no desire to put my time and my energy and my focus on things that don't feel good for me. And I mean, that's not to say that things aren't going to be challenging, or, you know, that discomfort that you might feel as you lean into your edges and those kind of things. But yeah, it was really a focus for me to really build my business in a way that felt good. And in doing so, I actually gave myself incredible tools to, well, I guess I really believe they led to my ecstatic birth with my baby girl. So yeah, that was really incredible. That was just over 2 months ago now. Gosh, it feels like it was just yesterday. So yeah.
So one thing I've just pulled out from what you've said then, well, two things really. One was, it's about feeling good, not just getting by, which is beautiful. I feel that's the whole vibe of our podcast here. But the other thing that you mentioned is that really it's not that we're going to feel, you know, fabulous all of the time, but it's that we're underpinning what we do based on the best possible outcome for ourselves. Like you and I were just speaking off air that both of us within the space of the last week have practically been in tears by 9 o'clock one morning asking someone to come and help us because the demands of doing it alone are too much for one person because we're not meant to be doing it alone.
Right.
But that you are really working on, building not only your life but also your business on this principle of pleasure. I think pleasure is a bit of a dirty word, really, in our current social framework. Would you agree with that?
It seems that way. What I'm discovering is that particularly for women or those who identify as women who have been brought up as, you know, in this kind of feminine, this female archetype, it is like we have been conditioned to prioritize that last, to only accept, seek, or experience pleasure when we have been really productive, when we've earned it, when we have done all the things, we've ticked all the boxes, we've put everybody else first, and finally there might be a little bit of skerrick of time or energy left, and that is where we are entitled, in inverted commas, to have some pleasure. And so really, I actually see pleasure as an incredible tool to help us evolve and grow and peel back a whole lot of layers of limiting beliefs and past conditionings and things that have been modeled to us that kind of prevent us from reaching our full potential, for lack of a better phrase. So when you talk about it being a dirty word, 100% in our society, women and pleasure, it's frivolous. It is, as I said, to be prolonged. It is to come last. It's selfish. And in actual fact, if we as women, as mothers, are able to seek and accept and receive and experience pleasure, what that actually does for us is it filters through all of our relationships with our intimate partners, within our business, with our clients, with our children, with our families, with our community. And I mean, just imagine an entire world where women, not just women, people are experiencing pleasure, and that can look like not just sexual pleasure, but I mean joy and contentment and satisfaction and feel good vibes throughout their day, every day. You can imagine what that kind of world would look like. And so for me, I feel like this is something for me that I am here to lead the way with creating.
Beautiful. That sounds like a brilliant kind of world to me. What I would love is if you could give us some examples across each of those different areas of life that we've talked about before. So what does seeking or feeling pleasure we'll start with business, in business look like for you? An example.
Yeah, I guess so. I would probably say, I guess I want to preface this with a conversation that in order to seek pleasure, it allows us to, well, I guess it invites us, it's almost like we have to be connected with ourselves and with our bodies. So your body is the thing that will guide you to what actually feels good. And so often a lot of clients will come to me and they don't even know what feels good. Often from the neck down, they don't feel anything anymore because of all these years of,
enforced disconnect. Really.
Exactly. And, the fact that our society really encourages and glorifies and celebrates this kind of very masculine way of being, of operating from the mind and doing things logically and, a step-by-step process, whereas that is not what feminine beings are all about. It's all about sort of connecting with our body. And so for me, it's been a focus on really connecting with my body and allowing my body to guide me to what would actually feel good in business, in relationship, and in motherhood. So in business, that looks like, when I do feel called to write the list of all the things that I want to achieve or do or need to get done, I will do that. And then it's about me, when I have the energy and the space and the time, particularly with 3 kids around, it is like, well, what from that list do I feel called to do? What do I want to work on? Sometimes it is the very, masculine structures and the lists and the doing the admin-y type stuff. Other times it is, writing an article or creating a socials post or, diving into creating a new program or a new offering. And other times it's just actually, I really don't want to do any of that and I want to take a nap. So how can I set my kids up so that I can get some rest? And from there, what I've been discovering is actually by doing that, by focusing what would feel good, it means that we do those things really efficiently, really effectively. And even if it means napping, often the amount of times I've woken up from a nap or a yoga nidra practice or something, and I've had an incredible idea or a new approach or like a new way of doing something. And it means that instead of, having 20 steps to get to doing the thing that I want to achieve, I realize I can move straight from step 1 to step 7. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's really the incredible idea of sleeping on it. Like, it actually works. We just have to let ourselves have that bit of space.
Yeah. And that's not to say, like, I think a lot of people, when they start to work with me or come into my realm, they imagine that, I have daily bubble baths and I'm always out getting my nails done or any of those kind of things. And often it's not that at all, because sometimes when it comes to pleasure or self-care or self-love, sometimes you're not interested in doing those things. And often if we just focus on those things, are the things that we need to weave into our life more, it can just seem like more stuff to do,
more
boxes to tick. And yeah, so really it's about, for me, continuing to come back to my body, continuing to come back to what would feel good, what my body's craving in the moment, what would feel good for me at this time. Yeah. So that's definitely how that goes for me in business. And it's been, like I said, it's been really incredible to see the actual outcomes, the results, and what I'm making of my business from focusing on pleasure being the driver of it.
It's a lovely journey to watch too. I love watching how your posts and reels and all those fun things evolve.
Oh, thank you.
Now, you did mention a little bit there about setting your kids up so you could rest, but are there some other examples of pleasure in motherhood that you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So one practice that I literally have told pretty much every client I've worked with, it's in probably most of my programs, it's all about sensuality. And again, like as you were talking about before, like, is pleasure a dirty word? Again, when we talk about sensuality, I think that can get misconstrued with sexuality. And often, particularly mothers, when we are up to our eyeballs with small children and things to get done and all the rest of it, people can switch off and neglect any kind of practice of sensuality because they feel like it's linked in with sexuality. And often that's not the thing that they're craving. And so I would just invite myself and anyone who I work with to really create sensual practices. And it doesn't look like what most people assume it would look like. It is not about, for me particularly, it's not about, lighting all the candles and having an hour to myself and wearing these kind of flowy outfits and listening to Yay Ma and, whatever it is in the temple. For me, it's really about just not adding anything extra on in terms of time. It's really about just connecting with my senses, whatever I'm doing. And as I said, it's like a practice. So whilst I endeavor to do it, you could do it in every moment of every day, I endeavor to do it as often as I can remember. So it looks like, moments where you're trying to get 3 children into the car and one's jumping over the back, one's jumping over the front. You finally get everyone buckled in. You're running late to wherever you need to be. You're going to be late. And you finally sit into your car seat, and I can choose to be really I can choose to focus on just getting there as fast as I can, and probably feeling quite tense and being annoyed with my kids for the noise that they're making, and probably not having much of a deep kind of sense of breath, having a really short breath. Maybe I'd be quite tense. Or I can sit in my car and feel the support of the seat. I can feel the steering wheel in my hand. I can take note of, the beautiful things on our way from A to B. I can, maybe smell the coffee that's in the car, or take in the sound of whatever's on the radio, maybe play some music that feels good, focus on having really deep, juicy breaths. And it's still going to get me from A to B in the same amount of time. It's just a completely different experience. So that for me was, obviously priority number one when I was exploring how I could prevent, the depression, anxiety, and insomnia from coming back again. It was like, well, I'm not interested in putting pressure on myself to make more time. I need to find something that will work for me with the time that I have, and not try and stress myself out with adding anything more to my plate in terms of time and energy. So that is like my number one thing, really just connecting with our senses. And that really brings us to the present moment then too. It brings us that connection to the present moment, connection with our children, connection with our partners if we're having conversations. And I think there is so much pleasure in really just being here in the now.
There really is. I think one thing that I've been working on lately is, rather than sitting beside my child when she's, say, in the sandpit, for example, and just being bored, because there's only so long that you can watch someone in a sandpit for, is to actually go, you know what, there's no reason that I can't take my shoes off right now and put my feet in the sandpit too and make my own little Zen garden.
Oh, yes.
There's no reason, if she's doing water play, that I can't just let it take 20 more seconds to run the hot tap instead of the cold tap. So if she splashes me, it's not freezing cold.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And the amount of times that I can be in a state of pleasure from literally just feeling the sunshine on my face.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
And we have access to this kind of stuff all day long. And again, it's like, it's this whole thing that we don't have to earn this. We don't have to, in inverted commas, be entitled to this. It's like we get to experience this because of who we are. Like, we are born worthy. We are born to experience the beauty that is here for us. And so it comes with pleasure. It's the same kind of thing with receiving. Yeah, and this is where we talk about, like, business and relationship and motherhood and working with women and pleasure. It's like when we can allow ourselves to receive, whether that be compliments or offers of help or assistance in some form or another, or whatever it might be, money, when we can allow ourselves to receive, that allows us to open our whole world to pleasure, to feeling good, to modeling to our children what it is that we are, like, perhaps, I don't even want to say the word worthy of receiving, because it's not about worth. And so, yeah, I think when it comes to pleasure in business, relationship and motherhood, it is about allowing ourselves to receive as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like this is definitely true in my life, which is an area to work upon. But I feel like out of those three categories, often relationship is the one that gets the dregs. Is that something that you see across your clients?
Yeah, because so often, typically people, if they're living coupled at home, often it's like a whole day's worth of events that have happened. Everyone's tired and there's not all that much time left. And by the time it comes to the end of the day, so often it can be like, well, I literally don't have any energy left. I don't have any time left. I've got nothing left to give to my partner, and vice versa. So that's definitely something that is really quite a common thread.
Yep. We can work on that one. Wonderful. So, Regan, where is it that we can find you?
I guess you could tune into my podcast, Dive In with Regan Figg. Otherwise, Instagram. I'm there on the regular. I share a lot of my life on there. I connect with my community on there really often, which is Regan_Figg. And yeah, you'll find all my kind of links from there.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it seems from some of your videos that you post, were you a ballet dancer?
I wasn't a ballet dancer. I was a professional dancer, yeah. I used to dance on cruise ships.
Okay. You just have the most beautiful lines.
Why, thank you. Thank you.
It makes it pleasurable to watch. And that's your whole vibe.
Yeah, I'm embodying the pleasure, right?
That's it. And how you are doing all these things with a 2-month-old baby. Whew, for any first-time mums who are listening, first time and third time experience can be very different. So don't freak out.
Yeah. Focus on you, love on yourself hard, and the other stuff feels a little easier.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you loved listening to this episode as much as I loved recording it. If you love what I do, follow along with me on social media at annacusack postpartum on Facebook and Instagram. Check out my website www.annacusack.com.au or find my book, Mama You're Not Broken, Unmasking the Unspoken Emotions of Modern Motherhood on Amazon. See you next time.